We're still not on air yet. There we go. So we're on air right now. So I wanted to just say welcome to everybody who's watching right now. Thank you for joining us. My name is Robert Friedman. I'm the portfolio strategist for Hive Chicago. And today we will be trying to review some of the high-level issues and questions people have had about the current round of the Hive Chicago Fund RFP. Before we get started, I wanted to do some introductions because today I will be joined by two colleagues from the Chicago Community Trust, Maria and Sana, if you want to say hi.
Hi, I'm Maria.
Hi, I'm Sana. I just started with the Hive Chicago Fund for Connected Learning.
Excellent. So Maria and Sana will be guiding us through most of today's agenda. So Maria, if you'd like to say a few words about what we'll be talking about today, and then Sana, if you'd like to jump into our first topic. I just want to say before we do that we know that people have specific questions and we will get to them quickly. If you have questions to ask as we're going through this brief tutorial before we get started with questions and answers, you can use the Q&A feature of the Google Hangout on air to pose a question. It appears in a display for me to then select questions and answer them. And so that's a great way to get your question into our audio today. So without further ado, Maria, why don't you lead us along?
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy that you could join us today. And for those who might join or who might view this later, this Hangout is as much for you as it is for the people who are on the call on the Hangout right now. I just really want to start off by thanking everyone for being pioneers in this system. The Chicago Community Trust initiated a new online system for its grant making about a year ago, and the Hive portion of the online grant making system was customized in some way, in many ways, because our RFPs are different. Our RFPs are more complicated than the general ones for the trust. So there are some things that have been adapted that may be working well, may not be working well. So I just want to kind of start off by saying we absolutely recognize that. I'm hoping that when everyone goes to submit their applications, this online system is a whole lot better than healthcare.gov was. I'm trusting that it will be. But seriously, I apologize to everyone for adding any more heartburn to a process. I know it's difficult enough to pull together great proposals, as you always do, that's stressful enough, but then adding the stress of some of the technical features we apologize for. So we're asking for your ongoing patience with this. We've received quite a few questions about the system already, and I just want to note that your feedback and your questions have been really helpful to us because we want to also strive to continuously improve. So I appreciate all of the feedback that you've given us so far. I am again grateful that you're all joining us today. Should we go through a brief demo, or Robert, do you have a few words you want to say about the FAQ?
Yeah, before we jump into a live demo of the system in which Sana is going to attempt to work through the budget, which is one of the, I think, biggest issues people have had is correctly completing the budget section, especially in light of the fact that multiple partners need to submit multiple budgets. Keeping all of that aligned is probably been our biggest issue. So we're going to do that. Sana's going to live take you through that live. However, I just wanted to direct everyone's attention, and I will add this link to the Hangout on our Google Plus page, and I will try to display it in the chat, in the Hangout as well, that we have a special page set up that identifies known bugs and known issues with the RFP process. and also identifies frequently asked questions and their answers. You can find that at hivechicago.org/RFP hyphen FAQ. That's hivechicago.org/RFP hyphen FAQ. If you can keep that page even open during this Hangout, you'll find a lot of useful information that could guide additional questions. So without going on any further about the FAQ, I wanted to jump back to Sana and let her drive you guys through the grant essential process lightly, and then hopefully complete a example budget.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Excited to be here. We have already logged into Grant Central, so hopefully you have as well and played around. We know that we've had a lot of issues already. So, Robert, do you see my screen? Does everyone see my screen?
Yes, your screen is clearly visible, but not your screen share. I can see you, but not your screen share.
Oh,
so
screen share, yeah. Okay, hold on one second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Alrighty, are we up?
Now you are, yes.
Okay, great.
Yay.
So under funding opportunities, you see the second one is the Hive RFP. So we're going to act like we're actually applying. And so we're going to go through the questions. So just quickly, does your project, yes. Does your project include a partnership with a Hive member organization? Yes. Is this project focused on connected learning with digital media components? Yes. And I think we decided we're going to go with a partner submission, correct?
Just for illustrative purposes for this Hangout.
Okay.
So we'll log in as a partner.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, again, we can keep going. Where is this?
You might need to go down further.
Yeah. As far as I can go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, continue. Okay, so this is the first tab you'll have. We've had a lot of questions about renewal and new grants and ongoing new project. I'm not going to address those right now because I think some of them are addressed in the FAQ. We'll just say, hypothetically, we're going with a renewal and an ongoing. And we're going to skip all this stuff. Okay, yes, we know we're doing a partner organization. And we're going to skip this stuff too, and we're going to actually just go to the project budget tab. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. And if you have the RFP guideline, the one that Maria sent out and Robert sent out a while ago, it kind of looks like this. This is the example budget page. So this is just a hypothetical. We're going to kind of recreate that, but in a live sense. So Maria, I'll let Maria talk, and I will just type.
So we're a partner on a project, and we're requesting $10,000 for our portion of the project. So we would type in $10,000. That's our requested amount.
So Maria, just to be clear, in that first line where it's labeled Hive, you're putting $10,000, which is only going to go to your organization, not the entire project, correct?
That's correct. That is my portion, my organization's portion of the project. We would not put anything in the shaded committed cell because the Hive Fund hasn't approved it yet, so that remains static. Okay. So now we know that our entire request for our particular project is going to be $50,000 from the Hive Fund for our whole project with our lead partner. But we're asking for 10, which means our other partners are asking for a total of 40. And that's what they would be receiving from Hive.
And I believe the correct
Other
thing to
partners.
put there in the revenue cell is Hive hyphen other partners, correct?
Hive other partners. Okay. Now, we have a match that we want to tell you about, tell the Hive Fund about, from either our own resources or another foundation. So let's pretend that we've received a $50,000 grant from the McCormick Foundation. That's there. We add that additional amount in that cell. And let's say that it's committed. So we put that under the committed.
So we've already gotten approval letter from them saying that we've gotten the grant.
Right. So our total revenue for this project is $100,000. For all of the partners in a project, this is the area, the revenue section is the area where you would be kind of designating how much of the requested amount, how much of the total project is being requested by you. So that's the $10,000 from me.
Maria?
Yes.
Could you show us what that might look like if, for example, the McCormick Foundation only committed $25,000 and then one of our partner organizations on this project was going to provide an in-kind support to match the rest?
Sure. So let's pretend that, okay, so they've committed $25,000.
So you requested maybe 50 and they committed 25. Is that okay?
No.
Or
however you think it would be best to sort of designate that the McCormick Foundation was not able to support us completely.
Okay, so, and let's say we're one of our, let's see. No, we have an in-kind contribution of $25,000.
Oh, okay.
So we're contributing $25,000 of other resources that are part of our revenue stream to this project. So
Can we
use the name of our
organization? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the name of our organization is Org One, and we put 25,000 there. So that's how it would look if if our organization provided an in-kind contribution. You could keep adding to the number, adding the number of orgs and their in-kind contributions if you wanted to. But the point is that the total revenue, the total revenue and then the total expenses, and we're going to get to the expenses in just a moment, need to equal each other. So yeah.
Sorry for interrupting again, but I just wanted to clarify based on a question I got in the group chat. Just to be clear, it's the first two lines, Hive and Hive other partners, where we indicate the amount requested from the Hive Fund. And when you as a partner complete this budget for your organization, you do not need to break out the amount requested for every other organization. That can be a lump sum on the second line, but that you indicate the specific amount for your organization only, and that's on the first line, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. Now, in this example, we only have one organization providing 25,000, but in principle, if each organization was providing some in-kind donation, we could keep, you said we could keep adding more and more lines, correct?
Yes.
And sorry, I can use my microphone now. This is Jennifer, and we need to add lines for each organization's in-kind match, or can we lump those together?
Sorry,
I'm
Sana
thinking,
and Maria. Oh, there
yeah,
you go.
I'm thinking about the response. It's it's nice to us to know, for us to know who is making a contribution to the effort. Um,
Will you get that information from looking at the partners application? I'm just thinking like with
yeah,
7 organizations and listing out 7 different
yeah.
matches.
hmm Yeah, I think that would work, Jen.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And just to be clear, that was Jennifer Bundy, an educator from the Adler Planetarium, who is joining us on this call as well. Excellent. So I think the revenue section is fairly clear. And the most important point, which you made, Maria, and I want to reiterate, is at the end of the day, the first 2 lines are the most important in designating the amount requested by the organization submitting this proposal application and the other partners share lumped together, and that the probably single most important point is that total revenue will need to match total expenses and be somewhat consistent between the different organizations and how that's detailed. So I'll let you move on to the expense section so that we can show how that's done.
Now, when we get to the expense section, every partner in a project, every applicant will be submitting the exact same information. So, and that is the information for those expenses for the entire project, not only their share of the project, the total project, and that's why this part of the submission will be identical for every partner. So let's just make this up. Let's say the salary and wages across the entire project for all the partners is $50,000. Fringe benefits, 5.
And just to be illustrative here, I think it would actually be helpful, Maria, if we pointed out by not completing the entire thing that in fact you don't have to. There aren't necessarily expenses in every category, correct?
That's correct. Indirect costs.
Where?
The second from the bottom.
Oh, actually, this is a good question that I have not seen raised yet, and I'm not sure if we've made clear anywhere, and I wanted to ask you. In the past, there's been a cap on indirect costs. I believe that was at 5%. Is that cap still valid for this RFP as well?
Yes.
So that is a 5% maximum.
No, it's 10, actually it's 10%.
10%. Sorry for that confusion. Yeah. So the cap on indirect costs is 10% of the total expenses or the total revenue?
Total expenses, which should equal the total revenue.
Yeah.
I see. And that's irrespective of what you're asking the Hive. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So 5. Just do you want me to fill out the rest?
Yeah, just put it. Yeah, just put numbers in there for our purposes.
So I guess I just wanted to be extra explicit on what I'm asking here. For example, if the indirect costs are 10% of the total expenses, but you ask for a disproportionate amount from the Hive. So for example, if there is a $100,000 expense budget, the indirect cost could cap at 10%, which would be $10,000. Is it reasonable to request all $10,000 from the Hive if, say, the total Hive request was only $50,000?
Could you repeat the question, Robert?
I'm going to say it one more time in one other way, which is, should the indirect cost request from the Hive do not exceed 10% of the funding requested from the Hive Fund?
Right. It should be 10% of the request to the Hive Fund, not 10% of the entire project.
Excellent.
So it would be 500.
Okay, so now let's go through the amounts that you'd be asking from the Hive Fund, which should end up equaling $50,000.
And the reason the amount is going to equal $50,000 is not because the 50,000 of committed revenue, it's because of the 50,000 requested from the Hive, correct?
Yes.
So in this case, in this example, it's just a coincidence that the committed amount in the revenue section is also equal to 50,000.
Right.
But what we're really trying to do is make the Hive expense request in the expense section equal to the Hive revenue request in the revenue section.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following. Can you just state again what the Hive expenses are?
Those are the expenses, that's the share that you are asking us to fund out of the total amount of the project.
Okay, so that's where
so here, Jen, out of the $50,000 that you're going to spend on your project for salary and wages, $25,000 of that will be coming from Hive. So that's what, when we pay, when we issue the payments to all of our partners, your partners for the project, a total of $25,000 for salary and wages would be coming from the Hive Fund.
Oh, but that is still the total for all of the partners, not just your organization?
Yes.
Okay. So there's nowhere where you're asking for our specific organization how we're using the Hive money?
For your specific organization, we won't see it.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just to state that another way, the expense section of the budget table for every single organization, every partner that submits an application to the fund, to the Hive Fund, the expense section will always be the same for every single submission, meaning we never indicate specifically what each organization will be spending their requested share on. It's only in the revenue section on that first and second line where there is a unique number for each organization submission.
Correct. Okay.
And so right now you'll notice that actually the total expenses do not add up to 5,500 or to 50,000, right? So that means that you have to adjust it in some way. That you're requesting too much for your revenue or your expenses versus your revenue. So there you go. This number should match up with the total revenue section. Or sorry.
With Hive.
With
plus
the
Hive.
Hive, yeah.
Plus Hive partners.
Yeah, Hive plus Hive partners.
Sorry, because you guys are in a large room, sometimes it's a little hard to hear, and so I just wanted to repeat that. That again, the 50,000 that Sana pointed out on the Hive total expenses needs to match the sum of the first two rows, Hive and Hive other partners, and the total expenses of the entire project should also match the total revenue for the entire project.
Correct.
Excellent. So I think that was probably as thorough a review of completing the budget section as we would like to go through, given that it's 1:30 now, and we also want to spend some time answering some questions. So although we anticipate some of these questions may continue to be about the budget, Sana, I think maybe it's a good time to switch off the screen share and try to address some of these other questions. Are you ready, Maria? Do you want me to? I have a list here that I can read to you one at a time.
Sure, go ahead and you can begin. And
Great.
And maybe start with the ones that we've received the most questions about, the most inquiries on.
Actually, so I'm not currently reading from the FAQ. I'm reading from questions that our viewers have asked using the Q&A feature in the Hangout. So as you're watching this, if you have any additional questions that you would like us to answer live on this Hangout right now, you can please pose them in the Q&A feature on the Hangout. You can also find questions on our FAQ, and we may take some time to address those as well after we've gone through these live questions. And I also believe that Marcia, who's on the call right now, has a question which she might ask live when she's available. So Marcia, when you're available to ask your question, unmute. I'll give you a few minutes to unmute yourself, and then we'll introduce you, and you can ask your question live. In the meantime, we're going to start with the first one that we received through the Q&A section. That first question comes from Sarah Arnes, and she's asking, are there additional requirements of the signatory? Does the signatory need to be the one to certify, or can any of the people affiliated with grant certify? Does that question make sense to you, Maria?
Yes. So if you're, there's a section of the RFP or of the proposal application where the person has to, the submitter needs to certify that the information is true and that their organizational profile has been updated and is up to date. The person who's making the submission can do that. So that may not, and I would not expect that it would be a program director or a VP or any official of the institution who would be signing off on a letter of agreement. The letter of agreement is meant to indicate and to ensure that the organization is indeed committed to the project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. And so if anyone has any outstanding questions about what Maria just said, again,
Please type them in.
You can please type them in, and then we'll get to them as soon as possible in this call. So if any additional questions get raised, use the Q&A feature to ask them. And so I actually made a little mistake while I was asking that question. I forgot to select it. It's a technical glitch. So anyone watching this Hangout later, the recorded version, will need to rewind a little bit to hear the answer to Sarah's question about a minute or two. So I think we're going to move on to the next one then, if you're ready, Maria. Marcia actually said that she is learning a lot, following along. So we're going to skip her question, which either was answered already or is no longer relevant. But we're going to go on to the next one from David Bild from the Nature Museum. And David asks, for the match, how do we fill the top section out if there are multiple partners, each with their unique matches for the request? Example, Peggy Notebar has a match from one funder, but another org has a match from a completely different funder, et cetera, and that there are a number of specific and unique matches that organizations are bringing to the table. I think this is similar to what Jennifer asked also, which is how explicit do organizations need to be?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And and the reason I'm taking some time to think about how to answer that is if you're applying as the lead or if you're applying as a partner. So if you're a partner, I would think that you would just put in your own, on the revenue side, your own match. And for the lead, I'm really reluctant to say whether the lead would need to list each one individually. I think that the lead should aggregate them just to make it simpler.
I think that makes sense as a nice strategy to balance making the information explicit by asking partners to, say, break out their contribution to the match specifically in their proposal in the same way that is done in the Hive revenue section. So in the first two rows, they articulate their unique organizational request from the Hive and then lump sum all the other partners. We might ask that matches be indicated in the same way, a unique match provided by the partner completing the application, and then a lump sum of other matches from other partners. So to not complicate any specific sheet. Does that?
Yes. I guess I just want to say that the purpose of all of this is not to make life difficult for people. I mean, and that's why this feedback is so helpful. Unlike, and as I mentioned before, unlike so many of the RFPs that the trust issues, the Hive RFP is much more complicated, and you guys are pointing that out beautifully in this conversation and in this whole process. And so we just want to make it as logical and easy for you, and yet provide enough information that reviewers and all of us who look at the proposals and need to make decisions about the proposals have adequate information to make those decisions in a sound manner. So it really is a balancing act. But please note that we are not trying to make life difficult for people. We are feeling your pain.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's a testament to the innovative nature and exciting, ambitious nature of what we're all trying to do together. That we're kind of breaking the system a little bit. Breaking the mold, if you will, in real ways that we feel, and so it is what it is. And I thank everybody for being patient with us and contributing to this process, as does Maria, of course, and Sana too. And so I think we're done answering Dave's question, which was a great question, and something that came up more than once already in this call. So. Let me ask the next question, which Jennifer wrote down, and I think is a good one as well because it does stress the current structure of the RFP system itself. Jennifer asks, Jennifer Bondi again from the Adler, if it is possible to ask for 2 disbursement dates for partner organizations. Some partners need to split their payments over a fiscal year for accounting purposes, and the system only allows 1 disbursement date.
Another great real question, practical question. I think what I'd like to do, just in the system, follow the system in order to make your submission, and then in our follow-up conversations, we can. Please give us more information about how you'd want the disbursements to be made, and we'll try to deal with that on the back end of the system. I don't want to make anything more cumbersome for you when you're trying to submit. So again, just use 1 date for submission, and then when we have our site visit or site conversation, we can get more information if you'd like it divided or structured in a different way.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the nice things. We're all suffering through this new system right now because it's new, and we're finding its bugs and flaws as any system that's new. And I understand what the real implications of that mean for folks. But I think one of the nice things that's coming out of here, Maria, from you, and I want to stress for people, is yes, the due date is hard, and yes, the system is kind of fixed, but we are not. And we have an opportunity to reach out to you after the submission deadline and confirm that your submissions makes sense to you, and vice versa, you have an opportunity to reach out to us after you hit submit and say X, Y, and Z didn't go well, or we need to clarify a couple things. So
Absolutely.
do your best to fit the system as it is, and then we'll negotiate as much as we can after the fact. And I know that can be confusing in and of itself, but that opportunity is available. So we have one more Q&A question written down that I'm going to ask you, Maria, and then I think Jennifer Bundy, who's been a wealth of a fountain of helpful information, and questions, has a few more. So I'll bring her on as soon as I ask this one from Armania Solorzano from the Center for College Access and Success. And Armani wants to know whether Glimmer grants need to provide a match, and I'm going to broaden that question to exactly which grant categories need to provide a match, and if you could also comment on what constitutes an appropriate match to the Hive Fund.
A Glimmer grant does not require a match. A Spark grant does not require a match. Catalysts, it's a 1-to-1 match, and for Lever grants, it's a 2-to-1 match, meaning that you get $2 from other sources to every dollar you're requesting from the Hive Chicago Fund. Now, what constitutes an acceptable match? There are several things. First, of course, cash from another revenue source, foundation, corporation, individuals, if you do individual fundraising. So that constitutes a match. It can be other resources that your organization or institution might be devoting to this project that it is using from another department, staff time, other resources, another grants that the organization has received that you're able to reallocate some funds from that grant to this one or to this project. So all of those types of things are acceptable matches.
Excellent, and I know that has sometimes been a challenge for folks who are looking to move into the Catalyst category after a successful Spark and have a limited definition of what a match might be. And so knowing that a match can be a little bit broader than just new grant dollars is a helpful piece of information. I think I would. Yeah, go ahead.
Keep in mind the purpose of the match in those higher grant categories is to start to position the organization for sustainability. And so if you're bringing in more dollars to help sustain the project, that's a wonderful thing. But if your institution is doing things a little bit differently in order to sustain what you've learned from this project or new practices, new programs, then that's acceptable too. We just want to ensure that you're thinking about sustainability and how to maintain and continue a great project or program.
Yeah, exactly. And in the spirit, and that's the kind of context that can help organizations think about what appropriate matches are. And I think it's an important context because the Hive Fund is not your typical funding source, and it is intended to mature projects from an incubation stage out into sustainable existence beyond the fund. Right. So thank you for clearing that up. I think that's a very helpful context for our members.
Sometimes the why helps things make sense a little bit better.
Exactly. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask Jen Bundy if she's ready to hop on, and she's got a question or two she'd like to ask as well. Jen, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of my bigger questions after hearing your presentation with the budget is that this seems like a new process about communicating what expenses are coming from the grant and what was coming from our match. In the past worksheets, that was never something we had to separate out, as I was filling them out at least. Mm-hmm. And, I guess I was just sort of curious if you have, since that is something that was brand new to me today and not something I've been talking to our partners about doing as we've been looking at our budgets, is there a process that we could use this time to make that easier? Is it possible for a one-to-one match to go ahead and just like half all the line items, or would you want us to stay away from doing that? And then I guess related to that, is this information that we need to then include in a report, or is there a reason that we need to make sure to split this out?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think, so going back to the why, it's important for us as funders to have a sense of where various resources are coming from, and then how they're allocated and how our funds are being used for them, so that we can be more accountable to the people who invest in the fund. I think what this is requiring on your part as partners that you haven't had to do before, and I'm understanding that a little more clearly as these questions continue to be posed, is that there's a whole lot more communicating that you may have to do around the budget with your partners than you may have had to do before. And it's new territory. I get that. Jen, what was the rest of your question?
It was mainly if there was a way to make, I mean, I guess that sort of answers it. I guess I'm concerned at this point with the timeline and a lot of the organizations having to go through their financial departments in order to get that information. So if there's, I guess, any workarounds or way you would recommend going forward with that?
Mm-hmm. Great, yeah. So that's a really practical, another really practical question that I imagine that really it's for the Catalyst and Lever grants that, this points to the Catalyst and Lever grants rather than the two smaller grant categories, because those are the ones requiring a match. The system, now the budgeting system is, or the budget portion of the application is actually one of those things that's standard to the trust. It wasn't customized really for the Hive. And I'm concerned about something you just said about the ability of applicants to be able to pull together some of that information in a timely way and a time to make the deadline. So is that the real point, or is that the kind of the focus of your question, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, frankly, just because the way I hadn't seen any communication around that portion of the budget before, and I've tried to keep up with this stuff, but I think having to go back to them now, and it might be easier than I anticipate, but I think that with some organizations it also might take more time to get those things together and to decide what is going to be, like to make that decision of what actually is going to be the match and what actually is going to come from the grant. Might be more strategic decisions that take more time to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I get, I get certainly understand in a larger institution that there are other, other departments and other people that you need to be in contact with to iron those things out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not really. I suppose I was just curious if there was a way that. I mean, I think you answered the why, so that's helpful, and I think we'll just sort of see what we can do, and hopefully we can just make those calls and put them in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's okay for me.
There are a couple points that aren't. I'm not responding to the question directly with this, but I just two things as we go through the rest of the weekend and Monday, which is the deadline day. I would really appreciate anyone who is having any difficulty submitting to email or call immediately, so that we can try to get certain answers to questions in a timely way. And so we just want to be as supportive to you as possible so that you can get your application submitted. And that means that there may be some workarounds that we recommend in order for you to hit the submit button and have it actually technically get to us. And then later, we can follow up with the more detailed information about where your matches are coming from. For example, I mean, this is a great example of, gee, how can we make it so that the system will allow you to submit your application, and then we could collect some of that additional information later when you have more time to gather it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that...
Oh, go ahead, Jennifer, sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm assuming that something like that, we might just drop a sentence into the budget narrative as something that we would like to follow up on. Okay.
Yeah, or in some of those cells, you may put some values in those cells that aren't entirely ironed out yet, and you explain that in the budget narrative, and then we could talk about it later.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think the other message is the lines are open, so call now. We have been and we will be available by email, by phone, to have conversations with you. Whether it's strategic questions or technical questions, and I think I'm hearing that loud and clear from you, Maria, which is, in addition to making things as clear as possible in the proposal, I think not wasting space not wasting space on where you'd like to actually talk about the project, and taking some of those questions offline out of the proposal and into an email to Maria after the fact is an acceptable approach. Is that correct, Maria?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You should definitely cherish the space in the proposal itself to explain your project and what you will do and make a case for your vision.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, we're at 1:50 right now, and which is nearing the end of our hour. We have no more questions in our Q&A section, and unless the other people on the actual Hangout with us today, Jennifer and Marcia, unless you have additional questions, which you can tell me in the chat box or just by interrupting me now. We do. So
sorry. Just a couple of follow-ups, and I think that these are things that might have been contacted already about, but I know the letters of agreement was something that was sort of a question about. I guess at this point the lead is just responsible for submitting all letters of agreement for all partners.
Yeah, what we need to have is a letter of agreement from all partners, whether they be funded or unfunded. So I think, if a letter of agreement is uploaded by the partner, they can't do that, can they?
Yeah, that was the technical issue.
Right. So that's another kind of. I'd like to change that. But yes, you as the lead would have to upload all those letters.
Great. And the only other question that has really come up in working with everyone, all the partners on this, is for the budget narrative, if we should focus that on the entire project or on the grant that is coming specifically to our organization.
Focus it on the project.
Great.
Great. So
Yeah, if there's one other thing, another question that has come up, I'm sorry, and that relates to, let's see, Sana, you've been
program
fielding this
and
one.
project timeline. There's a section, and I think it's the detailed question section, where it's asked for the program timeline with the start and complete date, and then also for the project timeline with the start and complete date. There's a glitch in the system where you can only fill out the start date and then the complete date for one, and we'd like you to fill out that for the project
rather than the program. So rather than when the program would be offered to youth.
Yeah. So we haven't fixed that, but we hope to get that fixed as soon as possible. We just don't know if it'll be completed by the deadline.
And so with just a few minutes left on our time together today, I did want to maybe take 1 second to take a look at the hivechicago.org RFP fact page, FAQ page, because that may be one of the best places for our members to go to in between now and the submission deadline to get some of their questions answered. So if it's okay, Maria, I was just going to screenshot over to that and scroll down and just show people a couple of sections that are available to them.
That'd be great.
Great. So let me do that now. So I'm going to share the FAQ page for you, and what you'll find at hivechicago.org/RFP-FAQ, you can see that it's actually a longer URL, but the short one I provided will get you there. Is that the guide has a couple of helpful, this page has a couple of helpful pieces. There is a reference guide that Maria compiled during our last workshop in December that's very helpful, just rundown of the whole process. We have identified some known bugs. We've mentioned them today. The project time frame, which Sana just highlighted, the fact that some 2015 new members are missing from drop-down menus in the partner section because of the membership process only having been completed after the proposal was released, the RFP was released. In addition, some members had been locked out because they hadn't been a member for a year. We've removed that qualifying question. So bugs like that have been identified in here. There's also a checklist section for you to sort of go through as a lead organization or a partner organization, and to identify the things that you need to submit and how in this area here. We also have a budget play-by-play, so all of the details that Sana went through in completing the budget on Grant Central, in the expenses and the revenue sections are detailed for you on this page. And then finally, we have a pretty extensive FAQ, frequently asked questions section, with 15 different questions that were submitted to us by members, popular questions that you can review and see if match your own. Additionally, you will find a recording of this webinar available right here. So please consult this page for any additional help that you need. Of course, email and phone is also an option to reach out to us. So that's all I want to say about the FAQ page. Maria and Sana, do you want to close with anything before I thank everybody for watching and say goodbye?
Yes, thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate how grateful we are for your patience in this new process, and just for all the work that you do. We're always inspired by the work that Hive members do on these proposals and the really cool projects that you implement. We will be issuing a feedback survey, so we really do want your feedback about this process. It will only help us to make it better, not only for us, but most importantly for you. And that, as a grant-making organization, we're here to, that's our business, and we are here to serve you. So we want to make this process as simple as it can be. So that's, I think, all I wanted to say. Just good luck with this process. And guess what will be coming out in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks? The RFP for round 2 of 2015. So get ready for that, and I'm hoping to have many improvements made to this process before then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Asana and Maria, for giving us your time today and spending time with us to help clarify some of these issues. Thank you so much to Jennifer Bundy for asking so many wonderful questions and really pointing out a lot of places where I know many of our members are having issues and vocalizing those. Thank you for Marcia for being on the line too today, and thank you for everyone who asked questions in the Q&A section. These are very helpful to us in understanding the places where you are having trouble and where we can improve the process as stewards of the network and stewards of the fund. And actually, there's just one more question came up, and I wanted to just let that individual know that we will address their question through the FAQ page. So we will answer any further questions that are asked through the FAQ page. Good luck to everybody. Look out for the next round, round 2 of 2015, which will be an exciting new opportunity and a much improved process. So take care, everyone. Thank you for watching, and good luck.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.